Hey, it's Jay, and you are listening to the Walk With Me podcast, episode 10. Hi guys, how are you today? I hope you're out and about. I have been waiting for another nice sunny day to come and walk and connect with you. I'm out on the beach. The waves are crashing loud today. I'm currently walking over seashells barefoot, which are quite sharp in my feet, but at the same time feel good. I love being barefoot. I hope that you are out and walking, as is the intention of this podcast, for us to move our bodies together once a week. And I've gotten some messages from you guys feeling guilty when you're in your cars or at your desk, and that's okay too. I'm so happy that you're actually devoting the time to walk beside me and making it happen, even if you can't actually walk. I actually got a cute note from one of my former clients, Sarah, and she's like, I'm driving, but she's a dancer and her work is to dance all day. So I'm like, you especially deserve to sit and drive with me while we walk. Anyways, either way, I just hope it's an invitation to go into your unconscious mind and a space to feel supported in deeper conversations and reflection. And also, I really like catching up with you in this intimate way each week. So I'm coming off of a weekend with having had a pretty big conversation with my dad. And this is relevant because, and perfect timing, because when you get this episode, it should be June 26th. And this day has a lot of meaning in my life. First of all, my birthday is June 25th, so I just turned 35. I'll be 27 weeks pregnant. And when this episode goes out, we will have opened the doors for women to secure their space at the Captivating Feminine Leadership Retreat, which will be taking place in Sonoma in February 2020. Now, this is also the anniversary of the first ever retreat. I used to lead it at the beginning of the summer in June. Actually, this is the first time I'm ever leading it in February. And I'll tell you a cool story about that. Actually, I'll tell you now. We went to book this space for when I normally do, which is sometime in the summer between June and August. And the retreat center wasn't available last year when we finished the retreat. And so what they had available was February. And this is my favorite retreat experience to lead. Women look forward to it every year. There are some women who've been coming for 5 years. It's an annual experience for them and a space to drop into sisterhood. So I'm like, I have to do it. And if I don't want to go too far into having not ran it for a whole year. So I booked it for February. Then it turns out I got pregnant and I wouldn't have been able to lead it in the summer because I'm due in September. So it works out perfectly because my new baby girl will be 5 months old, which is totally enough time for her to be initiated in the world, and then she'll get to travel with me to the retreat with my family. My husband will come and support and will be there. So the timing worked out perfectly. So there's a lot of energy around this time of year, and I was talking with my dad, and he's been holding on to this grudge now for 5 years. And we've really never deepened into the conversation because I don't think until now I've been ready to. And I sat and really held space to be with my dad in his emotion and talk through this conversation. And there's a lot of depth to this, but let me give you the background. So the very first year that I ever led Captivate, the retreat opened with an opening performance of a one-woman show, which I called Captivate. And I wrote this show with the intention of walking my talk as a coach and as a leader to use the storytelling techniques I was about to teach women for the first time in person at the retreat myself, and to be vulnerable enough to take the stage myself and to show them the power of healing that can come through telling the truth through sharing your story out loud, through taking the time to write about and express what you really think and feel, and how this relates to the opening of your business and being willing to receive abundance through your work, being able to receive paying clients, being able to receive money, having a brand that people resonate with, and a brand that people understand who you are and that you understand who you are. So all of this I was expressing through this one-woman show, which I wrote some very vulnerable explorations around family constellations, around the upbringing I had with my parents being drug addicts, things I felt that I've never been able to share publicly because this story might affect them or it involved my family really intimately. And there was a lot of, my whole life really, I'd held back from sharing these stories or even really digging into my true emotions around them because of how it would affect other people. But I thought, you know what? I can do this in an intimate, safe group of women. And a lot of things with my mom, I had expressed a lot more than with my dad because my dad raised me. My mom, my dad was a single dad and we saw my mom here and there, summers and such when we were younger and holidays, but my dad, we were with him full time. And he did a great job being a single dad. And he healed a lot of things in his life. He got clean from drugs. When I was about 8 years old, he went on a recovery journey. And there was some relapses here and there, but ultimately, starting around the age of 12, life got a little bit more stable. And he truly, especially being a parent now, looking back, I think it's amazing what my dad was able to do with 3 kids. And he has a strong ego and he's a very sensitive man. It's something I love about my dad is his sensitivity, his ability to access emotion, and the softness of his heart, and also how deep he loves his kids. And he has another side to him that is triggering for me because there's not a lot of self-responsibility in this side of him, and there's not a lot of knowledge around processing emotions. And so I've held back in the past sharing my true thoughts or challenging conversations because he usually gets triggered and he isn't quite good or doesn't choose to take a lot of responsibility for himself if he feels what you're saying is unfair or unjust or hurts his heart. So I never shared a lot of things about my childhood, the harder parts. I especially didn't in my brand or publicly. And I wanted to finally express those as I was learning about family constellation therapy, as I was learning about the heroine's journey, the art of storytelling, and how important these things are for your healing and for your business. I wanted to express them. And also I saw so many of my students holding back and how it held them back in their business, being able to really become one that they love and that didn't separate their personal life. And so wrote this show. I said a lot of things in the show to my dad about my life that I never shared out loud, and thought I would do this for the first time while also on my birthday turning 30, while also the very first time I'm ever leading a retreat. And there were so many nerves around this for me. First of all, logistically, that's a lot that I've learned over the years. The reason I don't do the performance and the retreat together anymore is it's too much to produce a show and then lead into a deep healing journey leading retreat. And it was my first time meeting a lot of my clients in person. We'd worked together virtually. There were 17 women coming to that first retreat, and I was holding it in my home. So it was early in my business. Budget was lower. Definitely wasn't charging enough for the retreat at that time. So the show was in New York City, and the retreat was going to be held in my home for the weekend. And I had written the show with a director that I used to work with on Broadway, hired friends to be in it. It was a full production in a theater. And then costumes, all the bang. And my husband comes to me backstage. It's about an hour till showtime. We're doing mic check and says, I'm feeling like I should have told you this before, but your dad wanted to surprise you and come to this event. So I had been sharing this event online and inviting women and doing the sales on Facebook and etc. And my dad had saw it. And my dad's never missed a show. Since I was a little girl, I did at least 3 musical theater productions every year. And my dad never missed a show. He was very involved in theater with me growing up, took me to all my shows, paid for them, worked backstage. He was part of the fundraiser committee. So the idea that his daughter was doing her first one-woman show in New York City and that he would miss it, he was not down with. And so also my dad had not traveled very much on his own in his life. At this point, he has a bad back, travels hard, and he's not great with scheduling, technology, all the things. So anyway, he was there, and this is the first time learning of it. And there's no time to shift the show. I mean, we're talking musical numbers within it. We're talking people who've rehearsed with me, other cast members in the show. And now I'm finding out my dad's going to be front row center to all these things I've never been able to say to him. He's going to be witnessing it happen with all these women in the room. And it wasn't all about my dad. It was just my story, my personal story, but just I hadn't thought about my parents hearing it from my perspective. And it wasn't filtered. It was honest and from my own memory. And so the show went on, and there were a few parts that were triggering to the point where he was talking out loud in the audience, and his ego was hurt, I could tell, to have, because I didn't share all the great things about my dad in the show, because that wasn't what it was about. And I do spend a lot of time talking to the women about how amazing my dad has been. But again, this show was about the opposite. So for him to witness it, you can only imagine with everything else going on. So the drive home that night, was tough, and it was a shock that he was there. And it was a lot to process. And it was a full weekend. There wasn't a lot of time in between. There was an after party for all of the women after the show, the retreat. Then we had to head straight back to Connecticut to prepare for the next day. And I hadn't planned anything for my dad, but the retreat was in my home, so he couldn't be there when the women were there. So I can't remember all the details. Basically, he went out to a casino to stay for a few nights. The retreat went on for 2 days, and he came back early while the retreat was still going. And he came into the space, the altar space, temple space that I had created for the women, where there's an altar in the middle, and it's just all feminine and flowers, and we'd been doing deep healing work throughout the day. And he came into the room, sat down on the couch, and went to watch the TV. And I was not centered. I was not grounded. I was not present to his emotions. I was really in my sovereign warrior queen, and basically said, you need to get out. You need to leave right now. You can't be in here. And his reaction wasn't great to that. And because his energy was already that way, his energy was a little off after watching the show anyways, because we didn't have time to talk about it. There was just that kind of hard energy between us. And it's like, you have to go, you have to get out. And I basically kind of shoved him out quickly before any of the women could see. And to this day, that was one of the hardest trips ever. There was names called. It was bad. And it was hard because I was in a place in my healing journey where I was really sovereign in my boundaries. Sovereign to the point where I probably had more of a guard and respect for myself than I did for my dad. And I was really trying to nurture and take care of my own needs, and also stepping fully into my business. And all of this he could feel. And I remember one of the things he said that weekend was, to this day, it like really stings. And a lot of people in my life said this when I was learning about boundaries and becoming firmer in my boundaries and in my sovereignty and respect for myself and my mission in the world and my work and my relationships too. Getting clearer and cleaning up the untruth that existed in any relationships. And he said, you just think you're this queen bitch. And my husband, it was the only time we almost ever kicked my dad out of the car because he was screaming at me. And I look back and it's like that was definitely not the way I would have wanted this to go down. And I think this past weekend, for the first time, my dad and I started to have a conscious conversation about what happened that week. And I had the resources to talk with him because he's been holding this grudge and even felt not welcome in my home truly since, and he felt it was really disrespectful. And since that weekend, I've become a mom. And I now know how much as a parent you do for your children, so I get more of that ego sense of entitlement that's just present. I'm sure I'll have a moment like this with my daughter where I want to say, like, how dare you not love, honor, and respect me in some form. Hopefully I'll be more conscious around where that comes from, But I do and can see his hurt there. And there's still a part of me that has this standard and integrity that I want to shift this relationship with my dad in me not taking ownership of his emotions and in him being able to take responsibility too. And I'm standing up for that in all areas of my life with men. With my husband, it's the same. If I'm committed to this deep healing path for the ancestry wounds that have been passed from generation to generation that have caused drug addiction and emotional instability and mental illness in my family, and death and murder and really, really horrible ways of living and responding to life that I'm working to heal and to not pass on. And if I'm doing that for myself and my lineage and our future lineage, I want the men in my life to be, and women in my life, to be doing that work too. And I have these high standards, and I'm looking to and exploring today, after this conversation with my dad, the balance between integrity and standards and boundaries, and also having an open heart. Because in some ways, because my dad's not doing therapy at this time in his life, he's done a lot of healing work in the NA narcotics program and through church. And so that I respect, and I feel I can trust him that he's done that work. And there's a lot of work he's not doing, and one of them is in owning his feelings. So I'm trying to find the right balance between meeting my dad with compassion and where I can apologize, because he wants an apology, and also where and how to stand in my truth for the healing I'm doing, and to not be his mother, but be a strong mirror of his ability to take responsibility for his own reactions and emotions. And so that's where we are. And of course, all of this is coming up on the anniversary of this retreat, because what I learned that very first year, even with my dad in the audience and all that happened, the women came up to me and to him after with tears flowing down their face, just thanking us for opening the door for them to explore this healing in their own life and relationships. And they couldn't believe the story wasn't even about me and my dad. In fact, I don't even know if women heard the details of that. What they heard was their own story coming through. What they felt was their own desire to have this level of honesty and healing with the people that they love. And that's all they wanted to talk about retreat, to continue taking these leaps, to continue being vulnerable in the stories that I share and in the healing that I do in my personal life, and striking the right balance between those two things. And I'm doing that today, and I'm using an exercise that I teach coaches in my training program, Mentor Masterclass, because I didn't complete the conversation with my dad, and I am feeling a level of compassion, and I do want to go back and find where are the spaces I can apologize, and where do I stay in integrity with my boundaries and my standards. And so I'm going to share that technique with you. And also, this storytelling process that I ignited 5 years ago on my 30th birthday, the start of this retreat, has evolved. And over the past 2 years, what we do on the retreat is we start off the retreat now, not with a performance, but I share a story in circle. So I've learned, and my business savvy has grown dramatically over 5 years. Now the retreat's at a professional ranch called Westerbeck Ranch. It's an amazing venue in Sonoma where we have luxury food, 3 meals a day. We stay together in shared cabins, and I bring in guest teachers from around the world to be with us. And on night 1, we drop into vulnerable storytelling with myself and a few other women on a panel. And then that opens up to me teaching this heroine's journey storytelling technique that helps you find how to tell and what parts of your vulnerable story to tell that are related to your brand and your business. And you can either choose a story on the retreat that is just for personal healing, one that you need to get out of the way and tell and hear yourself process, and to be processed with the support of experts and healers and sisters who will hold space for you in a sacred and trusting way. Or it's about discovering how your story relates to your purpose and your work, and better being able to communicate that, to call in your ideal clients and sell out the services that you offer. And so we go through this writing process, which is going to change this year, because I've taken a grief writing workshop myself that used the heroine's journey for processing grief. I did this, I've been telling you guys about that, to heal through the loss of my mom. And I've deepened into some of the questions. So where we used to only use 5, we're now going to be exploring 10 writing prompts that will help you learn how to tell your story in an open but professional way, in a way that allows you to heal, but allows you to touch on the most important points that people need to know and hear in order to receive your story and to feel welcomed into your work. And we do this in circle, so all the women get a chance to write and create and then share their stories. And we share them in circle, and then we have other experiences around these spotlight circles where you get to be in the spotlight, sharing your story and healing in circle, other healing experiences and business building experiences that are all around the feminine and supporting a feminine way of creating and growing and attaining abundance and productivity and time management and making more money in your business through this art. So, this will be I guess this is the 5th or sixth year that we will be running the retreat. And every time there's an initiation of my own healing, and it's definitely starting with my dad. And I'm excited for the changes that we're bringing to this year's retreat. And I'm sharing that because there's a lot of women that have come in the past, and we're really going to deepen our practice this year, and I'm super excited about it. So one of the ways that I'm processing that I just wanted to share with you today, and I'm sharing all of this because if you are a coach, a healer, an entrepreneur, or if you're considering becoming one, you're definitely going to have moments where your relationships in your life directly impact how open you are, grounded you are, receptive you are in your business. And when you're doing the deep inner healing work for your relationships in your personal life, that transcends into your business. And without doing that work, if you just focus on website creation, funnel creation, marketing techniques, business coaching, you'll never break through. And if you do, it'll be temporary success because you will not have created a foundation that you can continue to thrive on. And for me, this foundation was initiated in this moment with my dad, and I'm cleaning it up and working it out with him before this next event, because that's the work I have to do. And I want to share with you the technique I'm using today, and it's a skill. My favorite way to work with women is teaching skills and techniques, because skills are just great to have. You know, we need them to maintain a certain mindset, and in order to get through the most difficult and challenging situations, whether they're personal or in business, we need them to be effective, and we need them to be simple so that we can lean on them in times where we need a breakthrough. And skills are really the smallest element that you're going to need to assemble if you're going to become a coach. It's at the center of your foundation of your business. You know, you need skills to get conversations started, to help your clients calm down. You need them to address your own business challenges. And there's a simple set of principles and skills that I teach at the foundation for all the women I train. So the first is your ethics, your standards, and your integrity. And that's what I want to teach you today, because I'm going to use it in the moment. I came out here by the water to ask these questions of myself so I can go back in and complete this conversation in wholeness with my dad. And then there's two more. I'll just give you a heads up. It's creating trust and respect and intimacy with your clients. And it's planning, organization, preparation, and tracking. With those three things, if I teach my clients these skills, their clients, and they're going to know how to be successful as a coach. And as with any skill or technique, we can leave these on the surface, or we can take them deeper. And I can take this simple technique that I teach my clients around ethics and standards and use it for this very personal, intimate relationship in my life with my dad. So, ethics. Ethics are really based in the world of right, wrong, good, and bad. And remember that your ethics are your own ideas and rules rather than others. And it doesn't make them fact. And that's why intimate challenges in relationships are hard when you have a different set of rules going on. And you want to respect others' views and rules and ideas. But it doesn't mean that you have to bow down to them or bend over backwards for them. You can always follow your own ethics, and it's important to follow your own rules as a feminine leader. It's important to know what your rules, ethics are, because they allow you to show up in integrity. And ethics are ultimately trying to serve a hopeful, universal understanding of the idea of goodness. And to contemplate the ethics of anything, you simply want to ask these goodness questions. And so I thought, this is what I need to ask myself to figure out how to have this conversation, what I stand for with my dad. So I just want you to maybe think about somewhere where you might feel like you're being asked to stand in integrity. You're being asked to know what you stand for. You're being asked to have boundaries around your beliefs and show up for them. And these are the questions you can ask. Will this feel good for me? Will this feel good for others? Will this be good for me? Will this be good for others? Will this serve the greater good? And the idea is to follow your own views and standards. The way we act in situations to make us feel better determines what we stand for in the world. And so when I think about this, my dad wants me to say I was completely in the wrong for how I acted and disrespectful and apologize. This doesn't feel good for me. First question. Will this feel good for others? Maybe for him, but I'm not even sure if it's going to solve the problem. Will this be good for me? It doesn't feel good for me to just leave it at that and apologize, because it's missing some of the deeper shifts I want in our relationship. And will this be good for my dad? Ultimately, if I just apologize, I think I'm leaning into his standards and ethics and not teaching him how to treat me or teaching him how I need him to be in relationship with me. And will this serve the greater good? No. So when I ask those questions, what I think about is, can I explain to my dad my understanding of disrespect and my experience of being a mother, and apologize that I didn't handle the situation better, that I didn't communicate with him with more compassion in the moment and slow down and honor how he might be feeling? Yes, I can apologize for that. That feels good for me. That feels good for others. That feels good for him. And it's not how I want to respond in relationships. That's not my ethics in relationship with people in my life. And what also would feel good is to explain that I'd like him to take responsibility for what I might have been feeling, and to take responsibility for healing and processing his own emotions after hearing my truth in his own way, and not allowing that to affect our relationship, honoring that we both can have our own experience of things and views of things, and that we both deserve respect. So that's one piece. The second piece is standards. When it's good for you, good for others, and serves the greater good, but it doesn't feel good, then you have to find a way to make it feel good. So for example, in sales, in your business, if you have to cold call people or reach out to people and it doesn't feel good at first, you have to find a way to make it feel good, or at least comfortable. And that's a key to success. So when I'm teaching ethics and standards in the coaching business and helping women set the foundation of a feminine business model, I'm teaching them to think about how to make the harder things that they have to do in business. For many women, that's marketing. For many women, that's talking about their work. A lot of our work is about making it feel good. And that's where standards come in. Standards are the difference between success and failure. Tony Robbins has a quote that I love that goes, "Whatever your standard, that's what you get." And if you're not successful in a particular area, then your standards are too low in that area. And the only other possibility is it's just taking longer. There's a little bit of lag time in the success making its way to you. Lag time is when you've just recently set a higher standard than you had before, and reality hasn't yet caught up with your new standard. So most of the time, the reason someone isn't successful is simply because of a mediocre set of standards. And our relationships are usually not very successful because we have a mediocre set of standards. So here's a few important questions that coaches can ask regarding your standards that will help you not only in personal relationships, but also in your business. What is your standard for yourself? What is your standard for yourself? What is your standard for your client? Or what is your standard for the intimate relationship you're thinking of? What are your standards what are the standards your clients have of you? Or what are the standards that this person you're in conversation with or deepening with has of you? And what are your client standards for themselves? Or what are that person you're in relationship with the standards for themselves? So what my standard is for myself in relationships with others is that people in relationship with me feel connected, that we have an intimate partnership, that they feel supported, and that balance is equal, that I feel supported, connected, seen, accepted, and they feel the same. And that always love is present first and foremost. And that we're willing to do the harder work of having an intimate, open-hearted relationship that's honest. And my standard in this sense for my dad is really the same. My standard is that he doesn't approach our relationship like a wounded father or a wounded little boy, but that he takes responsibility for how big that moment was in my life. And he processes his emotions without asking me to hold them and nurture them and coddle them. And my dad's standard for himself, I know, is respect. It's always been one of his. And his standard for me has always been to teach me respect. And it's taken me very far in life. So I do want to bring that to the table because it's important for me too. But I also recognize respect is not just given because he's my father. Respect is a mutual energy that's shared. And that's what I would like to create in this conflict and step deeper into in our relationship. And finally, oftentimes, you don't need a special technique to raise your standards. You just set a standard and you see the results improved. So here are a few things you can say to either your client to set standards for your brand and your business, or to an intimate relationship in your life. This is how you can express it. You can say, look, this is the new standard. We're going to set it here. You need to follow through on this standard, and I need to follow through on this standard. Are you going to agree to do this? Do you see how this will improve your life or our relationship? Great. Let's go for it. The other thing you can share is this is the lowest point in your life because from now on, we will raise our standards to take our life to a new level. This isn't the high, this is the low. So that's something you can say, with your client when you're getting them to raise their standards, or in that challenge in the relationship. Listen, this is a low point in our relationship. And from now on, it's going to get better. And finally, this connects us to integrity. And here's a simple way of looking at personal integrity. Do what you say you're going to do. Be your word. Communicate to maintain your integrity. And when you're going to break your word, communicate it to whomever it impacts and whomever you've made that promise to. And honor your word in your communication, especially if you broke your word. Recommit, apologize, make it right with whomever you made that promise to. And here's a simple script that I've been running through my mind that you can use and that you can teach your coaching clients to use when you've broken your word to someone. You can say, look, I broke my word. I regret that. And I want to apologize to you for doing that. First, I want to recommit to doing this. I will get it done by this time. And I will let you know when I'm done, if possible. That won't work in the scenario with my dad, right? But then you can say, I'll be in communication, or I'll be unstoppable. And if there's anything else I can do to make this right with you, please let me know. And the thing is, when you show up with this kind of integrity, even in really heated, deeply wounded conversations, it heals. There's no more room for drama when you cut it off and show off like that. And I know that's what I want to bring, and hopefully I'll keep you posted on how it goes with my dad, to say, look, I broke my word. This is the standard I truly have for our connection and our relationship. I want to apologize to you for how you felt hurt and what role I played in that. I want to recommit to doing this in a different way, and I'll be in communication, and I'll be devoted. And using and honoring this type of language is a great way of honoring your word and a powerful way to remain in integrity. And I promise, if you learn these three things, ethics, standards, and integrity, in your personal relationships, definitely in creating the foundation of a feminine business model, you'll be able to handle any kind of drama or circumstance or challenge or conflict that comes up. And you'll be able to clear it with love and grace and ease. So thanks for letting me share this with you today. It felt really important because I'm opening the doors and want to invite you to join me in person on retreat to do this work live and together. It's the annual anniversary, which I only just realized through this conversation with my dad. And I hope that you are able to, if there's just any conflict in your life, use this to move through it with grace and ease, to not let it cause anxiety or overwhelm or that dreadful mind chatter. And that on this walk today, you can just clear it up by getting in tune with those questions I asked. You can rewind and listen to them again, answer them for yourself, and have that conversation with your client or with that person in your life, or just make that shift in your business model around the way you hold yourself and your brand. Thank you for walking with me today. If you are feeling called to learn the power of storytelling, if you want to come work with industry leaders live and in person, if you are relating to the idea of creating a more feminine business model that allows you to not focus on all the doing and achieving, but in the being and in the experience of your business. If you've got some blocks to work through to get to that next level of success, I hope you'll join us in Sonoma. You can go to thecaptivateretreat.com to check out all the juicy bonuses available right now and to secure your space. Accommodations and food are included for the first 24 women to sign up. And there's also some bonuses and early bird special pricing payment plans that are available temporarily right now. I'd love to share this experience with you. If you've been to the retreat before, it'll be very different this year. Next level, I hope you'll come and join us again. Be with soul sisters in person who share your level of standards, ethics, and integrity, who can mastermind with you to up-level your business and your work in the world and your personal healing. Check it out, thecaptivateretreat.com. If you liked today's episode, if you had an experience today that you want to share with me of your own journey through exploring ethics and standards and integrity, please do share under the show notes, real episode on the blog at JeannineYoder.com. I always appreciate you subscribing and leaving a review. It helps more people to find these podcasts. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode and a new walk. What a treat to see you and share this with you today. Thank you for holding space for my healing and preparation, this conversation with my dad. And we will talk soon. Goodbye, love. Hey guys, I'm popping in for a quick side note. I found the recording of the live show. I'm going to link to it on the page where you can learn more about the retreat. I'm going to add a link to this live show. If you want to hear the live show in action, the very first one-woman show I ever did, where my dad was live in the audience, you'll find it at the very bottom of the captivateretreat.com page, and you can tune in and listen there, not only to hear my own story, to be inspired to tell yours, but you also will hear some clips of my dad live in the audience. Enjoy.